Yeah, exactly. So everyone knows martial arts are hundreds of years old, but if you try to go back past the 1800s, you're not going to find any photos. You're not going to have any film. You'll get rough sketches at best.
Yeah.
And to even say that anyone has accurately recorded anything from there, um, define accurate. I mean, there's going to be an element of inaccuracy no matter how they've done it. So I called that year, or the 1800s, the first century of karate, and then the 1900s, I said, right, that's the second century, and that was when it became a thing. And we saw Bruce Lee, obviously not directly karate related, but we saw Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and all these other guys, and they made movies, and everybody became famous. And in the later part, or particularly the later part, but the
Right.
mid and even early 1900s, we're seeing photographic historical photos. We're seeing film.
Right.
World War II comes along. All these guys from around the world are living in Japan. They're living in Okinawa for periods of time. They're learning, and karate became a thing. And
It
go
popped
right
out
to
worldwide.
yeah, absolutely. And you go to the 80s and the 90s, and we had the Karate Kid, and we had karate was the shit. It ruled the roost.
It did.
And then 2000s came, and it wasn't just the 2000s. This was happening in the late 1990s and things.
Yeah.
BJJ and Muay Thai and all these other arts are now they've got the limelight, and in some cases rightfully so, through the UFC and things like that.
Stuff
So
that
I
had been
looked at
around just as long, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, exactly. It's not much different. It's just that they got the spotlight turned to them. So I'm sitting here going, okay, well, the 1900s were the second century of karate, so the 2000s have to be the third century that we have recorded, that we have accurate details for. So what do we need to do to make karate a big thing in the third century and continue the development and the growth of this art so that it doesn't die off somewhere? And that was the question I posed, and we've had some answers and some ideas, and nothing particularly light bulb inspiring, let's say.
Yeah.
But it's been an interesting discussion all the same, and you and I have had a bit of a yak about it, and I think it poses some thought. What is it that we need to do to keep this thing alive? So that's where it came from anyway.
No, that's a great place to get to start from. And I think I would want to kind of like bring it back to like when you say the I don't want to say quote unquote, but the first references of te or teat is it mixed in with whatever was being brought over from China at that time, so we can kind of reference it back there. All right. But then there's also kind of the native stuff that was going on with the grappling and whatever else that could be got on. I mean, and this is the thing I think a lot of people have a misconception about. Okinawa is as recently as of 2016 was called this by the president of Japan, the gateway of Asia. A lot of things, if you look at it on a map, between kind of south, north, east, and west, of most places in Asia, Pacific, you have to kind of filter through Okinawa in some way. This is why it's so strategically important today. But every part of around that area has had some connection to it. Taiwan, China, Japan, Hawaii, the Philippines. So I think that it's important to understand when people, especially and we talked about authenticity and stuff like that, but when people want to say, well, this is the real, true, authentic thing that they came up with in Okinawa, people were coming and going. People were doing what they do with martial arts. They find what works and they use it and they utilize it.
Yes, that's right.
And I feel like that's kind of misstep in people's thinking, at least from translation, is I think where things started falling off, is where the practical practical falls off in the second century, so to speak.
Mhm.
But the idea of, let's say, Mr. Miyagi,
Mhm.
and it kind of goes way too far, like into the fantastic,
Mhm.
when in reality, like, there's an old World War II, pre-World War II. It's like around that time, just when Japanese Empire was just rising up, and it was
Mhm.
just showing. The whole video is like probably not even 15 or 20 minutes long, but it showcases old Okinawa, and one of the things it showcases is just dudes training in karate. And yes, I say
Mhm.
dudes because women were excluded from that,
Right.
rightfully or wrongfully so. I don't know.
Mhm.
I would say wrongfully so.
Right.
But like you just see dudes just in pants training
Mhm.
and doing kata and lifting weights and like just being swole in
Right.
like 1920.
Uh-huh.
And then flash forward 80 years later, you got dudes selling DVDs with their guts hanging over their belts.
Hey, that's me, you know. That's why I'm trying to lose weight, damn it.
But
No,
well,
no, you're right.
I'm
When
making
did we lose it?
kind of an allusion to something we both know. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Where it's like we've fallen off this weird. It had gone from this thing where people just trained
Mhm.
to this thing where the guy sitting there knows magic things, and clearly no one was knowing magic things then. Um, If I sound slightly inarticulate, it's because it's late. But you can kind of see the picture I'm trying to paint
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. Yeah, it makes
That
sense. And I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying is, you made reference to a point there about people are standing up saying, this is the most authentic, this is the thing, whatever. Yeah, cool. Um, you might be able to take that specific kata, for argument's sake, and you can trace its history back so many years through such and such a written thing. But when did we last see it performed by someone who knew? You're not going to find anyone alive today. I challenge you to find anyone alive today who saw somebody performing, for argument's sake, Pasai in the 1700s or the 1800s. It's not going to happen. So
right.
is the kata, the Pasai, the applications, the whatever we're teaching today, how close is it to the real thing? And does it actually matter anymore? Are we focusing on how, and again, you and I have had this discussion a lot, are we focusing on, I must have the most authentic kata, when the reality of it is, it's you don't know how authentic the thing actually is. No, I was going to say, it could be the third cousin twice removed, not even of the same lineage anymore, and we just call it this thing. We call it Pasai, but it has no um, connection whatsoever to whatever the original was. How do we know? So the question I was going through for myself is, why should we get hung up on this? Does it matter? Should we care? Or are we better to focus on what we've got today and where we're trying to go with it rather than worrying about the past too much?